The wind off the shivering sea rolled across the battlements of Winterfell, like a low, ceaseless drum, crowding out lesser sounds, until only its solemn roar remained. Jon Snow listened to it in the black hours before dawn. Gloved fingers curled around the cold, rough stone of the Merlin, and felt the castle breathing beneath him. Old granite, inhaling the winter night, exhaling a history steeped in blood. Far below, the courtyard lanterns shivered in their iron cages. Men-at-arms stamped their feet to keep the chill from gnawing through wool and leather. A direwolf's mournful cry drifted from the godswood and seemed to shatter in the sky. All of it pressed on Jon like a mount's weight against the bit, demanding purpose, demanding movement. In the chambers behind him, an unfamiliar hush blanketed the great keep. Maester Walken slept in his rookery, unaware that the ravens he tended had already carried out Jon's most perilous message. Davos and Tormund, stalwart even in doubt, slept as well, each believing their king would meet at first light to speak of food stores or patrol schedules. None guessed that before dawn bled into day, a stranger's feet would walk Winterfell's halls, feet that sounded like any soldier's, any Castellan's, anyone's at all, and that this stranger's face would not be his own. Jon turned from the wall. Inside, a lone oil-painted torch threw restless shadows over the corridor's gray walls. They hopped like dark spirits, leaping from pitted stone to dusty shield, as though impatient to flee before something greater came. He moved past them, mind churning. The note he had sent eastward had been short, barely more than a breath, the way the kindly man of Bravos had taught Arya to speak when she was yet a girl. No war can be won by half measures. Meet me where the winters die and the first men bleed. Bring the face of storms. Signed with the direwolf, and for good measure, a splintering white star. The sigil of his mother's house long erased by time, but not by memory. That had been 2 moons past. Tonight the reply had come in the only coin the Faceless men truly valued: presence. Somewhere in the gray belly of Winterfell, amidst dead kings and rooting worms, the House of Black and White had slipped a phantom through gate and guard both, as silent as hoarfrost on a corpse. Jon felt it more than heard it, a ripple through the air, a prickle at the nape. He followed that feeling now, deeper into the keep. Down stone steps slick with ice sweat, past the crypt entrance, he entered a hall seldom trod save by ghosts. Braziers guttered low, throwing webs of dying amber. And there, beside the mouth of a narrow door that had once led to a forgotten storage vault, stood a shape draped in brown, face lost beneath a hood darker than midnight. The stranger's presence was so unremarkable that it demanded notice precisely by being nothing at all. A candle snuffed in a banquet hall. The silence after a scream. Many faces are carved in these stones, the figure said, voice hushed by the hood's cowl. Some belong to the dead, some to the living, and some to those who dream of either. Jon's sword hand twitched. You came. We were always here. A gloved hand slipped from the robe. In its palm lay a disk of pale weirwood, no larger than a coin. Upon it, a faceless visage had been etched. Eyes, nose, mouth hinted only by the vaguest cuts, as though the wood rebelled at definition. Jon took it, thumb brushing the grooves. Cold seeped into his skin like moonlight. You know what I ask. The stranger inclined his head. The many-faced god knows all prayers, all prices, all due reckonings. You seek a night washed clean of rival claims. The wolves, he nodded toward the black coin, have been without a moon to hunt by for too long. A breath left Jon like steam. Names, locations, times. In a single night, no heir to any throne but mine draws breath come dawn. Coin alone cannot purchase such a harvest. I'm not offering coin. Jon's jaw tightened. I offer a pact. When the last red sunrise comes, and it will, sooner than the world dares, Winterfell opens its gates to your god. Let the children of the forest bury their dead where they please. The House of Black and White shall have a keep of good northern stone. When the snows retreat, ships out of White Harbor will bear your kind to every corner where men still kneel to kings, and they will fear the shadows even in daylight. Dein Schloss. The hooded one said nothing for a long moment. Then, softly, "Power is a shadow on a wall." "I know." John's eyes burned with something older than grief. "But shadows kill." From beneath the robe, parchment crackled. The stranger handed him a sheath of folded vellum, its edges marked in Bravosi glyphs none here could read. "Then let the wall burn. Midnight tonight, the bells of King's Landing will toll for a kingless throne. Storm's End shall wake to find its last Baratheon a story. Sunspear's dungeons will ring with silence, where the Dornish princess once sang in chains. And across the narrow sea, a queen with dragons will sleep in peace until peace's throat is cut." "No." John closed his fist around the vellum. "Swear it." In Bravos, an oath is spoken with water. The stranger drew a thin-bladed knife, held it horizontally. "In the north, ice suffices." With that, he pressed the flat of the blade to John's wrist. Frost bloomed, white and crystalline, across the steel. Neither flinched. John dipped his head. "Then by ice it is sworn." The stranger sheathed the dagger. When he lifted his face into the torchlight, the hood fell back. John saw his own features, hair black as ravens, a scar across the brow. Eyes the color of storms, but older, colder, emptied of all doubt. It was like gazing into a pool and seeing the man he might become, should mercy die. The mouth smiled without warmth. "Every face is but a mask," the Ekajon intoned. "Even yours, King Huase bastard." He pulled up the hood once more, and in the instant the torch flickered, the man was gone, leaving only the fading sigh of wool and the dim torch swaying as though stirred by breath. Word carried on crow's wings decides battles before they are fought. In a long hall beneath the red keep, candles flickered, scattering gold across polished marble. 8 shadows played upon the walls. Varys the Spider, Lord Grafton of Gulltown, Lady Jean Florent in her husband's stead. 2 Tyrell cousins recently come from Highgarden. Ser Enis Frey bearing dark tidings from the twins, a Tarly bannerman who had outlived son and honor, and Maester Qyburn droning their secrets into ledgers sealed with black wax. Each thought their voice would shape the realm. None knew the meeting itself had already been sold. Outside, dusk crawled over Blackwater Bay, turning muddy water to wine. The gold cloaks scarce glanced at the hunched man who shuffled past, robes thick as if to ward off chill. He stank of cheap perfume and mumbled in Bravosi. They laughed, thinking him another frightened alchemist fetched by Qyburn for hellish trials. In truth, the alchemist was even more frightened than they imagined. But not for himself. Fear was an old friend. What unnerved him was the memory of the coin pressed to his palm an hour before, and the promise whispered in broken Valyrian. "Only your hands must deliver the gift tonight. Fail, and your prince, poor child, drowns in the dragon pit, like a kitten in a well." The Faceless men offered no second chances. So the alchemist wired thin crystal files beneath his robe, each stoppered with soft wax. Smoky stone dust, colorless and meek by lamplight, would on first step into air bloom into a cloud invisible yet certain as plague. 200 paces of corridor later, he reached the guarded hall. The king's hand, Queen Cersei's now, had taken to importing oddities for her menagerie of death. The guards eyed his heavy sleeves, but Qyburn's letter of passage opened doors even prophecy could not. One push, then another, and he was inside among them, head bowed. He did not look at their faces. To see eyes is to know flesh. He shuffled to a corner, set a sheaf of scrolls upon the table, and pretended to search for seal or stamp. When he bent, his hand slipped beneath the hem. Wax crumbled. A soft hiss, no louder than a sigh. Dust rose like prayer into still air. He counted heartbeats. 1, 2, 10, and felt the sting on his tongue first. Metallic, bitter, final. He closed his eyes. A minute later, Varys wheezed mid-sentence, clearing throat of something that would not clear. Others turned. Pale foam beaded at his lips. His goblet crashed. Lord Grafton reached to steady him and found his own knees gone. Maester Qyburn, aghast but fascinated, pressed fingers to Varys's soot-colored cheek. Before he could lift them, his sight blurred and stomach convulsed. Lady Florent clawed her collar, pulling Pearl taut until it snapped and scattered like frozen tears. The Tyrell cousins collapsed corseted in each other's arms, twin blooms withering in a frost. The alchemist toppled last, face like wax in summer. On the floor, elbows crooked beneath him, as though mid-prayer, he whispered a prayer indeed, not to gods of light or many faces, but to wind, to water, to mercy so small it might slip unseen through a spy-hole. He begged forgiveness of the boy in the dragon pit. Then his tongue stilled. Outside, a bell tolled. Across the reach, bright banners snapped above Brightwater Keep where once the florid Lord Paxter Redwine had schemed. Now Willis Menderley feasted there as envoy of the North, belly round with roast boar and spiced wine, ignorant that beneath the table a servant passed a second flagon to his squire, who tilted a single drop of milky liquid into the cup. Milk of the poppy? Willis thought nothing of it. The man was old, arthritic. Even heroes ache. He drank deep. The servant smiled, eyes gone dead as saltwater pearls. Far to the south, beneath red suns that never set on Dorne, a girl whose ribs still bore the bruises of Martell guards scrawled a letter to an old lover in Old Town. The first love. The real one. The one before politics. Ink pooled where her hand slowed. The quill slid. Fell. She tried to stand. Legs snarled in silk. Her breath came sharp, then softer, then not at all. In the courtyard, olive trees shivered though no wind blew, and in Marine, the former slave city blazing with new banners of three-headed dragons, Daenerys Targaryen, first of her name, breaker of chains, lay dreaming of green fields and tall horses. Torchlight danced upon her tent, kept at imperial distance from the city's reek. An unsullied stood guard. He never saw the child approach. Too small, barefoot, eyes hollow. Children beg for coin. This one begged for water. The guard hesitated. 3 heartbeats. That was enough. A pin-thin stiletto whispered from the child's ragged sleeve, slid beneath the bronze throat plate. The guard made a sound like a dove struck by an arrow, only smaller. Inside, the dreamer did not wake when the tent flap stirred, nor when the child crossed soft rugs, nor even when shadow covered her like a blanket. She stirred only when breath left her, a soft sigh mistaken for wind. The dragons screamed at moonrise. Far away their mother did not answer. Dawn crept toward Winterfell in shades of iron gray. Jon Snow stood in the godswood, beneath the heart tree's bleeding eyes, holding the vellum scroll. It was blank now. Whatever names or maps it once bore burned away by frost and dawn both. They had never been for him, only a promise kept. A crow settled on a nearby branch. It cocked its head as though curious. Its eyes were wet black beads. Jon studied them and wondered whether, in some silent sanctum in Bravos, a priest watched through those eyes, measuring the weight of oaths. He half expected the bird to speak in riddle or reproach. Instead, it croaked once and flew. Behind him, footsteps crunched over frost-whitened grass. Sansa halted at his side, cloak drawn tight. Fire trailed in her hair where sunrise kissed it. She looked at him as one would gaze on an altar, whose god demands more than any mortal might give. "The ravens," she said, voice brittle as first ice. "From King's Landing, from the Reach, from Dorne, even from across the sea, they say." Her tongue faltered. "They say every crown has fallen in a single night. Every last heir is dead." Joan's eyes remained on the tree. "Winter comes for all men. What have you done? What needed doing?" Sansa's breath clouded. "The realm will tear itself apart. It already has. I've removed the claws so the beast bleeds itself out before it can strike again." She reached for his arm, fingers trembling. "At what cost, Jon? Our honor? Our souls?" He turned then, slowly. Every line of his face was winter. Bleak, relentless, true. Yet in his eyes burned a sorrow older than any sin. A king who cannot carry the weight of his crown deserves none. "I will carry it so the realm need not." Somewhere beyond the walls, bells tolled. Dim, distant, yet unmistakable. They told for kings who would never wake, for dragons that would never soar, for songs that would never find their final verse. They told for a world reordered in silence and shadow. Sansa's hand fell away. She took a step back, then another, as though the space between them could shield her from what her brother had become, or from what the world had made of him. Around them, the godswood whispered in the tongue of dead leaves, and the heart tree watched, its red sap tears weeping down white bark, bearing witness to a pact sworn in ice, sealed in blood, and carried on a wind that would never cease. Jon Snow closed his eyes. In the blackness behind them, faces shifted. 1, 2, 100, each sliding like masks upon a stage, each fading into the next. He saw a bastard of Winterfell, a crow of the wall, a prince of the dragon's line, a king without subjects, a weapon without remorse. When he opened his eyes again, dawn had broken at last, and the north breathed with him, exhaling frost sharper than steel. Night lingered in the bones of the world long after the sun climbed. In Braavos, the kindly man gave alms to beggars whose faces he had once worn. In the crypts beneath Winterfell, stone wolves kept vigil over kings old and new. Far upriver, a lone direwolf howled into a sunrise painted crimson as a murder scene. No herald would sing of this night's work. Bards prefer clear villains and shining heroes. Shadows fit no tune. Yet in cellars and attics, in huddled corners of broken taverns, men and women would speak of the night of quiet knives, when death moved faster than raven, faster than rumor, faster than prayer. They would not know the price paid, nor the pact struck. Only Jon Snow and the god who took many faces carried that secret, as heavy and cold as the wall of ice that once marked the world's end. And secrets, like winter, do not die. Ka. Cold morning light seeped through Winterfell's arrow slits, glazing gray walls with the palest silver. Jon Snow stood alone in the council chamber, arms braced on the heavy wooden table, where generations of Stark lords had weighed grain tallies and war banners. Frost clung to his hair like a circlet newly forged. Outside the narrow windows, a hush hung over the courtyard. No clang of hammers, no clatter of hooves, only the measured crunch of a single patrol making its rounds. Even the ravens were subdued, as though dawn itself had taken a vow of silence in deference to the deeds of the night. He could feel the keep listening, every lintel and lintel shadow alert for a sound that would explain why so many ravens had erupted from their roosts before sunrise, wings black against a scarlet sky. Word would reach soon enough. The conclave of Old Town in ashes, its high septons dead at their reliquaries, the lion's den of Casterly Rock bereft of heirs. The summer prince of Sunspear discovered stiff in his litter, mouth marbled with foam, and east of the narrow sea, the mother of dragons gone still as stone, her beasts wailing above Meereen like lost children. Jon's pulse drummed in his ears. Each beat counted a life extinguished by his bargain. Yet the room felt weightless, emptied of everything but the resolve that had brought him here. The map before him, worn parchment edged in cracked black wax, lovingly updated by Maester Walken, lay spread like a skin. Tiny carved sigils marked strongholds of note. The Griffin of Connington at Griffith's Roost, the Kraken of Greyjoy curling over Pike. Jon reached for the dire wolf carved of bone and set atop the map, pushing it across rivers and ridges until it rested on the neck, midway between Winterfell and the Twins. The little wolf lingered there toothy, expectant. Footsteps approached. The iron-bound door groaned open. Sansa swept in, crimson cloak swirling. Her face was a frost-ghost mask of porcelain resolve. Cheeks pale from sleepless hours, spent chasing whispers through draft-cold corridors. Behind her came Arya, silent as thought, eyes the steel gray of melted snow runnels. Ghost slipped through next, tail low, muzzle flecked with rime. The dire wolf trotted to Jon's side, nudged his hip, then settled with a grunt, watchful. Sansa stayed her distance. They have confirmed it, she said, voice ironclad. Maester Walken read the sigils thrice. No heirs remain in King's Landing. None in Storm's End or Highgarden. The Dothraki outside Meereen stampede riderless, and the Iron Bank of Bravos has dispatched couriers to discover who rules the Seven Kingdoms now. Joan's gaze traced the map lines without seeing them. Who rules? He echoed, half to himself. That depends on whether the dead can claim crowns. Arya stepped forward, gloved fingers brushing the hunting knife at her belt. The realm will convulse, she said. When lions and dragons and roses all lie in graves, only carrion crows remain. And carrion crows love chaos more than winter. Jon met her eyes. He saw in them a glint of recognition, as though she understood more than he dared share. Perhaps she did. She had walked the dark roads of Bravos too, and returned wearing silence like a second skin. But there was no accusation in her stare. Only appraisal, as if she weighed the blade he had become and judged it necessary. I need the north sealed, he said. Mole's Town to White Harbor. Every bridge, every pass. If the southern lords mean to name a new king, they'll march through wall after wall of snow, starving. By the time they reach the neck, there will be nothing left of them but bones. Sansa's breath clouded. And what will be left of us? The North remembers, yes, but it also endures. It endures because Starks kept faith even when winter stripped flesh from bone. What faith have we kept tonight, Jon? Daemon? He straightened, shoulders taut beneath black wool. Faith in ourselves. In a realm free of dynasties born to slaughter their own, you saw what Cersei would do. You heard Daenerys' promise of fire and blood. How many children burned in Astapor because of her dream of freedom? Dreams are all that kept us alive after mother and father died. Sansa shot back. Without them, we are cinders scattered on the wind. Dreams are lies, whispered Sweet. Arya murmured. Steel is truth. Jon has chosen steel. Then Bhavani. Moi. Sansa's eyes flicked toward her sister, a flash of hurt before guards slammed down. And you? Are you so certain? Arya shrugged, glance skating from the knife at her hip to the bone direwolf on the map. I'm only certain death answers every summons. Better we dictate its direction than let chance decide. Silence stretched. Jon's gaze drifted to the brazier at the room's center. Coals slumbered under a mantle of ash, pulsing. He thought of the kindled once called Jaqen, faces shifting like candle smoke, and of the blade's kiss, cold as regret. The pact had been simple. The lives of rivals traded for a promise of sanctuary and reach. Yet promises were mountains. They shifted only with quakes. Already, he felt tremors beneath his feet. The door creaked again. Davos Seaworth strode in shy of breath, beard frosted white. Snow clung to his shoulders like sand on a drowned man. Riders, he said, without preamble. From the Vale, from Bear Island, from Deepwood Motte. They come to bend the knee. Others send birds. Seeking safe passage. None swear fealty to any crown but ours. The realms turned upside down. Nenenmao. Jon nodded, more numb than relieved. Tell them Winterfell's hearths burn for every loyal bannerman. Those who come in peace may rest behind our walls. And those who come for blood? Davos asked. We'll find ice sharper than swords. Davos' brow creased. Sharp edges cut both ways. Jon's jaw clenched. So we keep our grip steady. Sansa's voice dropped to near whisper. There will be conspiracies. Whispers that we poisoned the wells or sent phantoms in the night. They will look to us because we remain while others fell. Then so. Jon closed his eyes, seeing faces of fallen heirs float like candles on black water. Let them look. Fear can be a stronger wall than stone. Fear is brittle, Sansa replied. It cracks. Ghost lifted his head, ears twitching toward the window. A distant horn sounded. One long blast, a sentinel's note borne on needles of wind. Footsteps hammered in the corridor. The door banged open, and Tormund Giantsbane burst through, beard draggled with icicles. Riders from the east, he rumbled. Tall as storms. Badges I've never seen. They ask audience with the king in the north. Then? Jon's eyes narrowed. How many? Dozen. Maybe fewer. Tormund's grin showed teeth. But the horses, they smell of salt and secrets. Davos exchanged a glance with Jon. Salt? He echoed. Braavos lies east. So does Pentos. Jon's heartbeat quickened. The Faceless men hadn't promised an embassy. Yet debts seldom go uncollected. Bring them to the Great Hall, he said. But keep archers above the rafters. Quietly. Tormund nodded, stomping out. Sansa grasped Jon's sleeve. Will you barter more lives? Only mine if need be, he said. Arya traced a finger along the map's eastern sea. If Braavos sent envoys, they come to claim the harvest. The many-faced god does not sow without expecting tenfold return. Jon lifted the bone direwolf. Stared at its gouged eyes. Then let him claim it. He set the piece back down at Winterfell's heart, tapping the wood as though sealing fate. Winterfell is the altar. I will be the sacrifice if required. Ghost growled low, white hackles lifting. The great hall yawned wide, banners rippling above like stilled thunderclouds. The direwolf of Stark casting its shadow over empty trestles. Fires roared in twin hearths, pushing back the morning's bite. Benches crowded with shield brothers and spearwives lined both walls, a silent gauntlet of northern grit. Above, crossbowmen crouched among timber beams, arrows nocked, bodies hidden by wolfskins. Jon sat the high seat, cloaked in black and gray. Sansa stood to his right, a red fox fur mantle clasped about her shoulders. To his left, Davos leaned on the pommel of a dagger too dull for ceremony, but sharp enough for truth. Arya lingered in the gloom between the hearths, eyes on the doors. Tormund lounged near a pillar, arms like tree limbs crossed, a grin carved for battle. The doors groaned. Wind exploded inward, scattering sparks. Through the swirl stepped figures robed head to toe in mottled brown, hoods casting faces into shade. They moved like reeds in a graveyard breeze. Soft, sure, soundless. 12 in number, each bore a staff of ashwood, capped with a coin of iron so thin the firelight pierced through. The hall breathed as one until the doors crashed shut. Jon rose. You carry no banners. State your names. The lead figure inclined a hood. Names are heavier than needful. We come from the thin isle where silence is law. The house of black and white greets Jon Snow, son of ice, brother of shadow. Murmurs rippled. Davos cleared his throat. House? He scoffed under breath. More like tomb. Jon lifted a hand. Your greeting is noted. Why have you crossed seas and snow? To deliver balance, the speaker replied. From beneath his cloak, he withdrew a roll of parchment, sealed in black wax, stamped with a faceless visage. The debt we are owed is measured not in coin, nor stone, but in accord. Jon accepted the scroll, broke the seal. Lines in ink darker than midnight spiraled in Valyrian, braiding into a single command. Sanctuary unto those who serve the many-faced God, freedom of passage, license to practice mercy in every realm under your crown. At the bottom, a sigil of the direwolf pressed in blood. His blood, a droplet he had given that night. He looked up. Winterfell will honor its word. You shall have sanctuary. Sansa's lips parted, unspoken protest shimmering in her eyes. Arya's gaze flicked from Jon to the faceless speaker, then to Jon again. Measuring, understanding. The speaker inclined his head. All debts settled then. We depart, come dusk. Jon exhaled, tension loosening from his shoulders. A reprieve he hadn't dared hope. But the speaker raised a hand. Yet there is more. The many-faced god whispers of a debt unpaid. A crown bought with silence rings hollow. To fill it requires sound. A king must speak. Jon's brows knit. Speak what? Truth. Before the realm kneels, they must hear the voice of the man who shaped night's silence. Confess. The speaker's tone remained even, stripped of threat, yet the command cut like glass. Gasps scattered like thrown dice. Davos' eyes widened. Sansa's flush fled. leaving her waxen. Arya's fingers tightened on the knife at her belt. Tormund lifted his brows, amused. Jon swallowed. You ask confession before the world? The price of shadows is light. He considered the assembled hall. Northern lords, wildling fighters, spears of the Vale, all loyal by bond of oaths and shared blood. They followed because they believed in his honor. If he bared the massacre, if he claimed it openly, their trust might shatter. Yet secrecy festered like rot. A revelation on enemy tongues could crumble unity faster than blades. Jon drew breath, voice steady but low. I ordered no killing by northern hands, yet I forged an accord that allowed death to ride unseen. Rivals to the realm fell tonight by will of a god men worship in Bravos. I stand responsible. A stillness descended, so thick the crackle of torches sounded blasphemous. Lord Glover, red nose from winter ale, lurched upright. Responsible? You mean you slew him? All of them? His jaw worked, words falling like stones. Lannisters, Baratheons, Tyrells, Martells? Dragons too? Jon met his gaze. Their deaths were the stroke that averts 1,000 more. Cersei would butcher children for a throne. Daenerys burned cities for idols. Their heirs would spill rivers of blood. You know this. Lord Glover's hand trembled. Might be. Might be. But murder done in secret is murder still. Davos stepped forward. He makes a point, my lord. But so did Sir Arthur Dayne in the last war. Honor and truth shining on his blade. He died all the same. And thousands followed. Nation or. A grumble rippled. The faceless speaker observed, head tilted, as if curious which way the wind might blow. Sansa's voice cut through. Enough. Jon is king in the north by acclamation. If you doubt, withdraw your banners and ride south to a throne that no longer stands. We will not shackle our future to ghosts of tyrants. Her certainty struck the room like a forge hammer. Glover's glare faltered, dulled by memory of Ramsay Bolton's flayed banners, and the gates Sansa opened for salvation. He lowered his eyes. Jon dipped his head toward his sister, gratitude unspoken. Then to the speaker. My confession has been made. Have I paid the price? Almost, the hooded one said. Confession turns the key. Penance opens the door. One task remains. What task? The hood lifted, revealing a woman's face pale as polished bone. Eyes the gray of storms over the Titan of Bravos. Jon recognized her, though he had never seen her. Felt a shock like winter steel against bare skin. Arya stiffened. The woman spoke. The North must give one of its own to the many-faced god. Not just blood. A name revered. Only then is the slate clean. Then? Murmurs erupted. Jon's pulse quickened. Whose name? He asked, though dread already coiled. The woman's gaze drifted toward Arya beneath the rafters. A girl once walked our halls, borrowed our faces, then fled with them still hidden beneath her heart. The girl has danced too long in two worlds. She is debt made flesh. Arya's knuckles whitened. Sansa inhaled sharply. Jon's voice cut. No? The faceless woman inclined her head. No. She echoed, calm. Arya is of House Stark. I will not barter her as coin. Arya stepped into the light. I make my own bargains. Jon's hand shot up. Arya. But she was already moving toward the faceless envoy, each step echoing like a slow drum. What face will the many-faced god claim? She asked, eyes trained on the woman's. The envoy smiled faintly. Perhaps your own at last. Arya's lips curved in something almost like relief. She halted, inches from the woman. I gave up the girl once and became no one. Then I took her back. If you want her again, you must fight her. And I have learned to fight. The hall hushed. Torches flickered, as though the flames themselves leaned in. The envoy's hand slipped beneath her robe. Steel whispered. Arya mirrored, pulling needle free, its point catching firelight. Davos cursed under breath. Jon half drew Longclaw. The faceless entourage remained unmoving. The envoy raised her offhand, palm outward. No blades. A girl's gift was not steel but name. If she means to keep it, she must show she is more than mask. She gestured to the center of the hall. One cut. To the heart of self. Arya's brows knit, confusion flashing. The envoy produced a small obsidian shard. Carve your name into flesh. Above the heart. Show the world who you are. Gasps rippled. Arya's throat bobbed. Her gaze flicked to Jon, to Sansa. Then to the northern lords whose eyes glittered with horror. Slowly she sheathed needle, accepted the shard. Breath steaming, she pressed the point to the cloth above her left breast. The obsidian bit fabric, then skin. Blood welled, dark on leather. She carved, A, then Rar. Pain etching lines across her brow, yet her eyes never left the envoy. O, then Nen. The final line scored. She lowered the shard, chest slick crimson, and letters raised like scars already. There. She whispered. Arya Stark. It's who I will be until death takes even the memory. Bender. The envoy nodded. The debt is settled. Jon released a breath he did not remember holding. Sansa's hand fluttered to her mouth. Davos muttered a prayer to statues long ago toppled. The faceless delegation bowed in unison, robes rippling like blind waves. Then, without another word, they turned and filed out, leaving a ragged silence behind. As the doors closed, Arya swayed. Jon lunged, catching her. Blood seeped warm through his fingers. Maester, he cried. Walken hurried forward with linen and tincture. As he pressed cloth to Arya's wound, she smiled, faint but fierce. It was only flesh, she whispered. I've lost more to sparrows. Jon smoothed sweat-damp hair from her brow. You paid too high a price. Better mine than yours, she murmured, lids drooping. Kings must keep hearts whole. Across the hall, the lords dispersed in hushed clusters. Some eyed Jon with newfound reverence, others with dread. Fear he could use, dread he must mend. Yet for the first time since the pact, his own heart beat steady, broken perhaps, but unbowed. Blizzards rolled over the Dreadfort's ruins, where Ramsay Bolton's banners once flayed the sky. Now only scavenger crows haunted those battlements. Deep in its cellars, long exiled to darkness, the last living Bolton, an unloved cousin spared slaughter by obscurity, shivered in chains, unaware fate's wheel yet turned. The storms outside muttered, and the hidden tunnels beneath the keep hummed with footsteps not heard for centuries. Faceless shapes moved, dragging crates and bundles. Scrolls, ledgers, vials that glittered like moonlit tears. The Dreadfort would serve a new master now, not of knives peeled from living hide, but of death's quiet art. The North had promised sanctuary. The faceless men took the bones of a fallen house and made a temple. In Braavos, the kindly man tasted a sip of dream wine and smiled. Balance held. For now. But the ledger of the many-faced god is never closed. Ink darkens. Pages turn. Weeks passed like breaths drawn in midwinter. Long, white, all-consuming. Snow smothered roads and fields, forcing hosts to camp in valleys, where wind scoured banners blank. Yet ravens flew despite gales, and their black Margatinas ferried truth. Jon Snow, king in the north, had wrought the night of quiet knives. Some letters praised, others condemned, but all agreed on one fact. A power new and terrible had risen at Winterfell, veiled in wolfskin and shadow. At the wall's frozen ruin, ragged survivors of Eastwatch huddled in a watchtower, arguing whether to ride south for succor or stay till dawn's warm stones again. One night, a rider appeared, cloaked in sable, face gaunt beneath a black steel helm. He carried Winterfell's seal and coins stamped with a faceless visage. The king calls, he said. The dead beyond the wall stir anew, and this time, they march south, unchallenged. Fear cracked frost-bitten lips. In the black of the forest, eyes glimmered like stars fallen to earth. Among the wildlings, whispers spread. Blue-eyed wights crossing frozen rivers, snow bears with spines of ice. Tormund rode hard to Winterfell, beard whipping in sleet, to find Jon pacing ramparts under a moon the color of polished bone. "Cold ones move again," he warned. "We should burn them all." Jon's gaze swept the night sky. "We tried. Fire and dragon flame both." He thought of Daenerys dragons keening over Meereen, motherless. Fire answered many perils, but not the oldest. "We must forge a new weapon." Tormund's laugh rumbled, hollow. "Got a smith who can forge sunlight." Jon's breath plumed. Maybe not a smith. He looked southward, where beyond horizon lay mines of dragonstone, loads of obsidian, secrets of Valyria awaiting hands bold, or desperate, enough to claim them. But there is stone when steel fails. Plans unfurled like snow banners. Ships from White Harbor, armored columns braving knee-deep drifts to haul timber for siege engines. Smiths hammered dragonglass points under Vulcan's manic supervision, each arrow black as wells of night. The North's forges never cooled. Churning spearheads, bolts, daggers. Old ruins of Carhold and Last Hearth spit red sparks into the dark. Yet as preparations swelled, so did rumors. That the Faceless men, now ensconced at the Dreadfort, whispered to wraiths. That they fused ice with shadow to birth assassins who could kill men with but a breath. That even the White Walkers might bargain for faces. Fear spread quicker than the wolves howled, and trust shrank. Lord Selwyn of Torrhen Square petitioned for his family's removal from the north. Citing plague of dread, he died in bed the night the petition arrived, veins black as ink. Lady Hornwood sent a raven seeking protection, and her castle awoke to find sigils of the many-faced god daubed in ash upon every lintel. She swore fealty afresh, voice trembling. Jon received each report with a heaviness that threatened to snap sinew from bone. Yet he answered the fear with deeds. Grain caravans escorted under heavy guard, healers dispatched to every holdfast, widows given stipends from Winterfell's coffers, more coin than his father ever spent in a decade. He would prove a king not of nightmares, but of winter's hard mercy. Still, in quiet moments, he wandered the godswood's frozen pool, eyeing the heart tree's red tears dissolving into bark. Each droplet, a life. Each line, a promise. Ghost padded beside him, muzzle dusted white. Arya walked too when she could, wound mending into scar, her new name carved in flesh. They spoke seldom, yet shared a solace in silence neither had found elsewhere. One night, under swirling snowdust, Arya broke the hush. "Do you trust them?" The Faceless men. Jon's breath lingered in moonglow. "Trust? No. But need is not trust as kin. We use what weapons lie at hand." "Nan?" Arya touched the scar over her heart. "Weapons break." She tossed a dagger, caught it. "When this steel shatters, I have others. But when shadows shatter, what remains?" Jon looked at her, saw the child she once was, the girl who chased cats and believed in songs. That girl had died in King's Landing, and Bravos and on roads bloodied by war. The woman before him was forged of loss. "If shadows break," he said softly, "we stand in light." The answer seemed to please her. She sheathed her dagger, breathed icy air. "Then stand tall, big brother." One red dusk, Davos strode into the council chamber clutching a sealed letter, fingers shaking. "From Pike," he said. "You should read." Jon slid wax, eyes scanning. "The Ironborn Queen," he murmured. "Asha Greyjoy offers alliance. She claims Euron fled, driven mad by the Quiet Knives. The Iron Islands name her queen and invite treaty." Sansa arched a brow. "Ironborn alliances last only as long as the plunder does." "But plunder we can give," Davos said. "Dragonglass shipments need ships. The Mander can't sail half the realm in winter. Ironborn longships could ferry loads twice as swift. Nance. John considered. Asha seeks marriage bond, he added. To me. Sansa laughed. A brittle sound. Ironborn wives drown husbands for sport. Davos chuckled. Some men prefer a bit of danger at home. John folded the letter. I will meet her terms halfway. Let her swear fealty. She keeps her crown under mine. No marriage, but trade and mutual defense. Tormund scoffed from doorway. You'd trust seabirds with winter grain? Better seabirds than sharks, John replied. We choose the lesser of storms. Sansa eyed him. You've grown adept at choosing storms, it seems. John held her gaze. Neither apology nor regret offered. She looked away first, though sorrow lingered in her sigh. Spring remained a fable whispered by Southron bards, yet harbingers arrived. Carrion eaters drifting above open fields, drawn by carcasses of armies frozen where they marched. The riverlands teetered between famine and plague. Refugees pressed north, gaunt faces invisible beneath hoods. At Moat Cailin, the next chokehold fortress, John ordered barracks turned into infirmaries. Faceless healers taught by silent priests ministered with drafts that smelled of sandalwood and snowmelt. Still, the undead came. Scouts reported pale figures glimpsed at the edge of haunted forests, east of the last river. John rode out with a host of spearmen, Arya at his side. To find only the aftermath. A hamlet razed, doors splintered, blood sprayed across hoarfrost like crimson blossoms. Tracks ended abruptly, as though the dead vanished into air. That night, they burned the bodies. Flames painted John's mail gold, the heat feeling alien after so long in snow. Arya stared into the pyre, face unreadable. You think the Night King is truly dead? She asked. Joan's hand brushed the pommel of Longclaw. I watched him shatter. He remembered the battle beyond Winterfell, Theon's charge, Arya's leap, the spray of ice shards. Yet legends speak of ice hearts, reborn with every winter. Perhaps another rose, Arya mused. Darkness loves vacant thrones. Joan's eyes narrowed. And who forged this vacancy? He meant it lightly, but the words tasted of ash. Arya's brow arched. He shook his head. If another walker commands them, we will cut him down too. Tormund joined, beard singed at tips. Cut faster, he said. Dead grow restless. John nodded. Tomorrow we ride for the Skirling Pass. The wildlings report an army of whites moving south. Arya sheathed her knife. Then the quiet knives were only the beginning. This war has a new night. They reached the Skirling Pass under a sky the color of bruised iron. Wind howled through narrow defiles, carrying the stench of rot. At dawn the whites appeared, a column of pale bodies shuffling through snow, skin taut as brittle parchment. Blue eyes glowed like embers buried in ash. Their numbers stretched beyond sight, a silent tide. Joan's host arrayed on a ridge. Archers knocked dragon-glass-tipped arrows. Sieg bows creaked. Davos barked commands down ranks. Tormund hefted an axe of obsidian edges grafted onto weirwood haft. Arya stood atop a boulder, cloak whipping, scanning for the walker who must command. But none showed. The whites advanced regardless, like a river guided by unseen current. Loose, John shouted. A volley hissed downward, in a black rain. Arrows punched through bone, heads exploding into frost, bodies collapsing. Yet the tide did not falter. Spears braced formed a porcupine ridge, and the undead crashed upon it. Dragonglass shattered ice skulls. Obsidian axe edges scattered limbs. Still more came. Scrabbling over bodies. John fought at the fore, Longclaw crackling with flame from a wildfire-soaked cloth. Tarly's front-line trick. He hewed through a white in farmer's rags, another still wearing a half-frozen nightdress. Faces of the innocent, twisted. Iron guilt hammered his heart. The snow drank blackened blood. Smoking. Suddenly a deep thrumming filled the air, like flutes carved from glaciers. From behind the whites strode creatures taller than giants. Bone plates fused with ice. Antler horns of frozen crystal. Walkers, but not of the Night King's brood. Their eyes shimmered violet, throbbing like wounded stars. Davos gaped. 7 save us. Jon felt a chill colder than command. The pact of quiet knives had slain men, but these beings were beyond men. Hold ranks. The giants lifted staves of jagged ice. Lightning forked from sky to staff tips, arcing groundward in spidering webs. Where it struck, men burst into blooms of frost, bodies frozen solid mid-cry. Torment's laughter died on his lips as he staggered, frost climbing his beard. Jon hurled himself forward, dragging Torment behind a ridge. Shards rained like shattered glass. Arya dashed through chaos, seeking vantage. Her eyes fixed on a walker whose horns spiraled like twin crescent moons. She darted between whites, leaping onto their shoulders, vaulting higher. Needle flashed, carving a path. Reaching the walker's flank, she flung a dagger of dragon glass. It lodged in the creature's thigh. The walker turned, but its violet gaze betrayed surprise. Arya somersaulted, planted both feet on the knife hilt, and launched upward, plunging a second dagger deep beneath the creature's chin. A shriek split the pass. The walker convulsed, frost crystals exploding from its veins. Violet light guttered out. The horde staggered, momentarily listless. Jon sized the pause, rallying archers to concentrated fire. Arrows felled whites in droves, bodies collapsing atop one another, forming walls of still flesh. Yet 2 walkers remained, staves thrumming. Blow the horns, Jon shouted. From the rear, hornblowers loosed a thunderous wail. Across hillocks, a company of Ironborn advanced, Asha's envoy. Bearing heavy nets weighted with dragon glass shards forged in Winterfell's smithies. They hurled the nets, ensnaring one walker, stakes biting its limbs. Ironborn axes fell, hacking until violet blood hissed into snow. The creature collapsed in shards. The last walker bellowed, wind twisting into a cyclone. Snow blinded men. Archers lost footing. Jon charged, Longclaw blazing with cloth fire. But as he neared, the cyclone parted, revealing a figure cloaked in brown, hood up, standing untouched by the storm. Faceless priest. Jon faltered. The priest raised a hand. The walker's cyclone shuddered, then reversed, funneling inward until it collapsed upon itself and snapped the creature's frozen limbs. The walker buckled, roaring. The priest drew a thin ivory dagger and hurled. It pierced the walker's heart, shattering inside. Light bled violet, then vanished. Snow fell silent. The battlefield hushed but for crackle of flames devouring whites. Men stared, awestruck. Jon approached the priest. "Why are you here?" The hood tilted. "A debt once paid can yield dividends, King of Snow. Balance must hold." The voice was genderless, barely more than breath. "These are the other's cousins, spawn of frozen seas unmarred by Valyrian fire. They answer no king but winter itself." Jon glanced at broken walkers. "They answer steel and dragon glass." The priest's lips curved. For now. Gloved fingers extended a coin of weirwood. "When the next storm breaks, seek the Dreadfort. The many-faced god has gleaned truths buried beneath elder ice. You will need them." "Ben?" Jon accepted the coin. It felt warm, impossibly. When he looked up, the priest had vanished. Breeze stirring cloaks' last whisper. A shiver climbed his spine, not from cold, but prophecy. Night blanketed Winterfell when they returned. Torches bobbing like will-o-wisps ahead of the weary host. Fires baked aromas of spiced venison. Healers waited with mulled wine and bandages. Jon dismounted wearily, muscles burning. He was hailed a hero, yet his eyes sought only the godswood. But Sansa met him first, expression a collage of relief and fear. "I heard of walkers with horns," she said, voice trembling. "Is it true?" He nodded, handing her the weirwood coin. "This came from the Faceless men. They claim knowledge that can defeat the new dead." Sansa turned the coin between fingers. "Every bargain deeper than the last. And stakes climb," he agreed. "But if the North falls, no pact matters." She moved closer. "Promise me you won't walk into shadows alone." For once no steel laced her voice, only sisterly plea. I promise. He touched her cheek lightly, a rare tenderness. Arya limped toward them, arm in sling. She grinned. Next time you face a horned ice giant, save me a piece. Jon smirked, ruffling her hair. Next time we bring giants of our own. Morning came bruise purple, winds calm. Ravens departed north carrying scrolls to every watchtower, calling bannermen to muster at Winterfell come new moon. Jon assembled war councils, forging alliances with Asha's Ironborn, with the Knights of the Vale under young Lord Robert grown tall at last, even with remnants of the Reach commanded by a minor Florent lord who had survived the quiet knives by preaching humility. Supplies flowed, preserved grain, pork salted thick, barrels of lamp oil. Dragonglass arrowheads piled higher than grain sacks. Still, he felt time slipping like snow melt through fingers. The walkers' appearance so far south suggested more awaited behind them. Legions, perhaps. And he sensed the price of each victory hiked exponentially. Lives, trust, perhaps his own soul. In his chambers one night, he opened an oaken chest. Within lay 3 objects: Longclaw, its pommel wolf stern, the weirwood coin, and a shard of dragonglass Arya had carved into the shape of their father's direwolf sigil. He weighed each like choices: steel, shadow, ice. A knock shattered quiet. Davos entered. There's a delegation at the gate, claims to represent the remains of King's Landing. The old smuggler's eyes held storms. Led by Gendry Baratheon. Jon's brows lifted. He lives? Seems so. He brings no army, just tales of wildfire caches he alone can disarm. And he carries a crown, broken, bent. Jon rose. Bring him to the Solar, and send for the maester. When Gendry ducked under the lintel, he looked older, shoulders corded from forging for destitute refugees. Burn scars marred one cheek. He knelt. Your Grace. Jon lifted him. Why come north alone? Because south is dead, Gendry said. Voice raw. Tyrell fields burn. Storms end silent. Lannisport a graveyard. I found the wildfire stores. Without a king's order, they'll boil the bay until half the realm sinks. I cannot disarm them alone. Jon studied him. You seek help. I seek purpose. Gendry shoved forward the dented crown. This belonged to Tommen once. To Joffrey. To Robert before them. It's cursed metal. Melt it. Reforge as plowshares or spearheads. I'll swing the hammer myself. Menderwanda. Jon took the crown, weightless in palm yet heavy in memory. South may yet rise from ash, but winter threatens all. Help us hold the line, and we will forge whatever future you choose. Gendry met his eyes, and in that moment, a new brotherhood formed. The Smith King who renounced iron for fire, and the Snow King who wielded both ice and shadow. Moonrise bathed Winterfell in pearl. Jon walked ramparts, the world muffled by falling snow. Plans etched earlier weighed like stone tablets on his heart. Alliance with Ironborn. March to Skirling Pass again. Expedition to Dreadfort for secrets. Ghost padded near, nose lifting to wind. A distant sound drifted. Wings beating. Jon peered into sky. Saw silhouette of a single dragon. Regal, barnacled with ice, riderless. The beast wheeled once, keen to lament that trembled stone, then veered southward, disappearing into cloud. Jon's heart lurched. The last living fire soared alone, orphaned, maybe mad. Yet where dragons flew, hope still smoldered. If he could find Rhaegal, perhaps dragonfire could be bargained anew. Fire against ice, a balance tip. He clenched fist. The war to come stretched beyond maps, beyond shadows. He would fight it as he fought everything. With loyalty torn raw, with choices that scattered pieces of his soul like snow on a gale. But he would fight. In the heart tree's bloody eyes flickered torchlight. The faces carved into bark seemed to shift, as they had the night of the pact, watching, waiting. Jon tipped his head. I will bear it, he whispered. For them, for all of them. The wind answered with no words, only the hush of snow settling on stone. Quiet, inexorable, eternal. Yet in that hush, John found resolve. He turned from the battlements, cloak snapping, and descended into Winterfell's depths where counsel awaited. Shadows gathered at his heels, but he strode through them, and they parted before him. Winter's wolf marched to war, carrying steel and shadow in each hand, and hope like a spark cupped between. Denim. Snow shrouded the world in a hush so complete that even the creak of Winterfell's outer gates seemed an intrusion. Beneath a sky the color of unlit steel, the castle's courtyards thrummed with tension rather than sound. Armorers whispered over rivets, farriers guided horses with gentle clicks of tongue on teeth, and ravens lifted from their rookeries in nervous fits, their wings slashing the quiet like ink upon parchment. In the great yard, Jon Snow walked a slow circuit with Gendry Baratheon at his side, the young smith's breath fogging the air in ragged clouds. They spoke softly, each aware that ears lurked in every shadowed arch and every arrow-slit window. "You'll have the forges you asked for," Jon said, glancing across the bailey to where 3 new chimneys belched a pale smoke. Dragonglass blade molds, heavier anvils, charcoal in plenty. Double the fuel rations if you need them. Food we can spare less easily than wood. Gendry nodded. Ironborn crews unloaded the last of the cedar 2 nights ago. Never worked wood from the summer isles, dense stuff, burns hot and long. I can temper obsidian to steel's backbone with that heat. His eyes, so like Robert's when they burned with purpose and nothing else, flicked toward the battlements where archers drilled. Blades are well and good, but we'll need broadheads too. The walker's armor looked thicker than the old tales claimed. Jon followed the line of the young man's gaze, remembering violet eyes flickering out above a black spear of dragonglass. "We'll shape barbed tips," he said. 4 feathering, hard pine shafts. They'll punch through the ice plates before shattering. Davos has men shaping shafts in every village south of the last river. Gendry's shoulders eased. One worry settled among thousands. "Good. And the wildfire? I left King's Landing with maps to every vault Tyrell Mason's built, but without the key powders, even I can't make the green burn on command." Jon's breath clouded. Sam's assembled the alchemists who fled the capital, and Maester Wolken found enough neater in the sediments below White Harbor to keep them busy through spring, if spring comes. He hesitated. "But wildfire barrels are dragons we can scarcely chain. We use them only against the great walkers, and only if no men stand between." "No men will," Gendry said, hammer-calloused fingers flexing as if to grip a haft. "Asha's Ironborn volunteered for that charge. They know the sea. If the flames run, they'll dive beneath." Appreciation sparked in Jon's gray eyes. "And you'll lead them?" "I swing hammers," Gendry answered. "But if no one else will carry the torch, you may yet forge more than blades," Jon murmured. "A king's name, perhaps." Gendry's laugh was short and without joy. "Kings deal in crowns, not crucibles. I'll leave the crown forging to you." "Now." They parted soon after, each to separate burdens. Jon climbed the eastern rampart where a cold wind combed white fingers through his hair. Beyond the walls, Immers of torchlight marked trenches dug in concentric rings. First a moat to flood and freeze. Then palisades of trimmed pine trunks, their tips smeared with tar. Then kilns heaped with pitch-soaked rubble ready to ignite and tumble. Engineers more used to reeving the western coasts now cut ice blocks with Asha Greyjoy's laughter ringing above them. Her axe used as often to bark orders as to split pine. Below them all, hidden from common view, a tunnel mouth yawned from beneath a collapsed, stable wall. Fresh stone braced its arch, the secret throat into which the Faceless men slipped nightly on quiet business of their own. Jon watched 2 of their number shuffle out just now. Robes mottled brown, hoods deep. They passed a guardsman who did not see them even as they crossed in front of his torch. One raised a gloved hand as if in silent salute. Jon's grip tightened upon the frost-rimmed parapet. Mercy purchased with blood, he thought. But the debt is ours until it is not. Behind him, bootsteps approached, the cadence unmistakable. Light, confident, almost dancing. Arya came to lean her back to the cold stone beside him. She wore simple wool, but the midnight wolf brooch, her gift from bronze Jan Royce, held her cloak. The A, carved across her chest, had faded from livid to pink, and now to white, but still angry against pale skin. She followed his gaze to the tunnel. "They're building something," she said. "I tried to track them yesterday, but they vanished under the old kennels." Her lips twitched, half disgust, half admiration, like fleas in a wall crack. John exhaled. "The priest told me the Dread Fort holds secrets older than the wall. Spells carved in ice that bind breath to winter. If that's true, they'll try to twist those spells back on their makers. And if it's not true, then they'll twist us." John met her eyes. "Keep guard on them, but no blades drawn without cause." "I know shadows," Arya said. "I'll dance in theirs. They won't even feel the draft." She started to move away, then paused. "Tormund says Rhaegal roosts on the stony shore when storms calm. Asha's scouts won't get close. The dragon blasts longships from the sea like driftwood." John's chest tightened. "If the dragon fears men, men trained it so. We may need a rider the beast will trust." Arya's smile flashed feral. "The dragon once trusted you." "Before betrayal," John answered. The memory of Daenerys' eyes, they had glimmered with admiration once, then horror, then nothing, cut hotter than any wind. A dragon never forgets flame or blood. But perhaps it forgives ice, Arya mused. "If you would see it." He looked westward, where ocean met sky in gray blur. "Not yet. When Winterfell stands firm, I'll find Rhaegal. Until then, we trust in human wings." Arya touched his arm, squeezing once, then melted into shadows. Night deepened, stars struggling behind high clouds. John descended to the godswood for counsel with silence. He knelt before the heart tree, red leaves shivering like tongues. In the pool's black mirror, he saw himself framed by snowflakes swirling down to melt upon water's skin. The reflection shivered at a ripple. Then another face slid beneath his, one pale and slim, with hair like white silk. A gasp escaped him. He scrambled to his feet, hand on Longclaw's hilt. The water stilled, only his own wary face stared back. Yet the apparition had been clear, Bran's thin, knowing gaze. As if summoned, the ravens sleeping in the branches rustled and croaked one hoarse note before silence returned. John exhaled. "Show me," he whispered. The leaves fluttered overhead. From north beyond the wall, a whisper seemed to ride the wind. No words, only dread. He sensed Bran's far-flung sight roaming the snows, hinting at horrors unseen. A crunch of boots signaled Davos. The Onion Knight halted, eyes soft with apology. "Forgive me, Lord, but the latest courier from White Harbor's below." He held out a parchment, flecked with frozen salt. "Manderly's son, Sir Faceless, was slain last night. Slit throat in his bunk." John's stomach clenched. "How?" Guards heard nothing. Door locked from inside. Throat cut in one smooth draw. John's fist knotted on the parchment. "A face on loan." "Seems so." Davos' jaw tightened. "His father still pledges men and grain, says vengeance can wait. But tongues wag. Some whisper the faceless men do your bidding still. I gave no order. The envoy swore our debt settled." "Gods keep their own ledgers," Davos murmured. "Men fear what they don't scribble themselves." John's breath fogged in the dim torch glow. "We ride for the Dreadfort at dawn. Storm or no? Storm or no? We'll know what beasts we shelter or cast them out." "Them?" They set forth with first light, a column of 200 on shaggy northern geldings, their breath swirling like ghosts ahead. John rode at the fore beside Tormund and Arya. Davos trailed with a dozen hard-eyed men to guard the baggage sleds bearing dragonglass mines and siege ropes. Gendry remained to oversee the smithies, and Sansa commanded Winterfell's halls, resolved behind parted lips that shook only after Jon had vanished into the flurries beyond the gate. The journey eastward carved across barren scrublands and half-frozen streams. On the second dawn they forded the White Knife where ice floes churned like breaking shields. Wolves shadowed them at dusk, gray phantoms bounding across ridges. On the third night, campfires burned below the Dreadfort's jagged silhouette. A fortress raised to embody dread, its towers clawing at a swollen moon. Jon halted the column among gnarled pines half a league distant, posting sentries. He and Arya stole forward with Davos and 2 scouts. Close now, they saw faint blue lanterns bobbing atop the battlements. Yet no sentry horns sounded, no arrow feathers glinted. A chain hung slack across the gate. Snowdrifts choked the moat, and one barbican roof had caved beneath heavy ice. "They've let it rot," Davos whispered. "Or they made it seem so," Arya countered, eyes narrowed. Jon approached the gatehouse alone, boots crunching. He laid a palm upon the ancient timbers. Frost crackled where his warmth kissed the wood. "Open," he called. For a breath, nothing. Then iron bars rattled. The doors parted noiselessly. Inside stood a single figure, the same faceless priest who had saved them in Skirling Pass. Candlelight from within the gatehouse danced across their waxen mask of a face, but the eyes glittered alive. "Debt draws you hither again," the priest said. "Enter." Jon beckoned Arya and Davos. They crossed under the rust-flecked portcullis into a courtyard strewn with collapsed pens and canted walls. High above, the Bolton flayed man's sigils had been hacked away. In their place hung blank banners of gray cloth, empty, waving languidly in an unfelt breeze. "The Dreadfort is a wolf's den long emptied," the priest said as they followed up a twisting stair. "We fill it with echoes." "Echoes killed Wireless Manderley," Jon replied. The priest paused upon a landing. "Echoes kill no one. Men do. And the man who took Lord Wireless' breath was no servant of the many-faced god." Jon frowned. "Do not turn riddles into fog." "Who killed him?" "A shadow older than ours." The priest opened a narrow door. Within lay a chamber floored in black ice that glimmered under lanterns of smoky crystal. Sigils spiraled across the ice, glyphs of swirling curves and jagged thorns. At the center, a single block of frozen water jutted from the floor, waist-high, sealed beneath layers of glass-clear ice. Inside the block lay a heart, no larger than a fist, blackened and crystalline, pulsing faint violet light with each beat. Arya hissed. "A walker's heart." "Not walker," the priest corrected, voice hushed. "This is the first chill, the seed from which the others grew. Before the children bounded in ice, it pulsed in the heart of an ancient human king who begged winter for power." Jon felt the room's cold seeping through boots into bone. "Why show me this?" "Because the walker's new liege means to reclaim it." The priest's eyes glowed like coals dying. "He sends avatars ahead. Horned giants, lesser hearts bound in ice. But he remains north, building storm. When he claims the first chill, he will awaken ice in every corpse from the frost fangs to the arbor. Your ravens will outnumber the living." Davos cleared his throat. "And who is he, this liege?" "The frozen king," the priest whispered. "A remnant left when the Night King shattered. His soul splintered, and one shard nested in the black gate beneath the wall. When the wall fell, the shard fled, seeking its mother heart. It found power in cold seas, raising new shapes from drowned bones. Now it hunts here." "Menshatar," Arya sniffed. "We shan't gift him the key." "Not gift," the priest agreed. "But nor can we keep it." He knelt and laid palm on the ice block. "We have studied its lattice. Only one fire can unmake it. Dragon fire." Jon swallowed. "Aegle. Or wildfire in enough weight to match a dragon's breath," Davos offered. The priest shook head. "Wildfire shatters, but shards scatter seeds anew. Dragonfire tempers, fusing ice to steam and ash beyond reckoning." "Medisiwa." Jon stared at the pulsing heart. A beat of violet light seemed to mimic his own pulse, threatening to sink. Then we move it south to the dragon. Too late, the priest said. The frozen king marches even now, guided by this heart's call. If we move it, he will follow. If we wait, he arrives while the heart remains in his reach. Then we lure him to death, Arya said, smile thin as needle. Make Winterfell the forge. Jon measured the distances in his mind. Days for his column to ride back to Winterfell. Days more for the frozen king. Could he keep ahead? And could he bind Rhaegal to his side first? He turned to the priest. Can your order hold the heart safe for half a moon? We can bury its pulse in illusions, came the reply. But not for long. 10 suns perhaps if our faces do not falter. 10 days will have to serve, Jon said. We ride west to the stony shore to claim the dragon. Then return here. Rhaegal melts the heart. The walkers fracture. Nan? Or the dragon burns us all, Davos muttered. Jon laid a hand upon the old knight's shoulder. You're welcome to stay behind. Davos' answering glance shimmered with wry devotion. And missed the Song of Fire and Ice played a second time? My ears may be half gone, but not my sense of history. He sighed. I'll bring the pitch-bearers. Arya stepped to Jon's side. If Rhaegal will not let you close, perhaps he'll let me. He knows my scent when we rode the dragon pit in Meereen. Jon managed a half-smile. That day, we were fools touched by miracles. Yet maybe the miracle still remembers. He turned to the priest. Hold until moon high on the 11th day. If we do not come, bury the heart beneath the long lake. Freeze it where it can call to no one. The priest inclined his head. Balance demands we obey. But understand, water that holds fire soon becomes steam. Jon understood. Steam scatters, vapor vanishes. Hope with it. They departed the Dreadfort before dawn, hearts heavier than the night's frost. Tormund, left in charge of camp, grunted approval as they briefed him. He placed 200 wildling spears at their flank, fists pounding hearts as oath. The column wheeled west, into a rising pale sun. 5 days later they reached the stony shore, where cliffs frosted in white plunged to a restless sea grumbling under panes of drifting ice. Scouts reported great scorch marks across jagged rocks where Rhaegal landed, and gulls circled detritus of charred carcasses, cattle gifted by terrified fisherfolk in hope of appeasement. But no dragon perched upon the promontories now. Only the wind howled. Jon led a search across a labyrinth of caves, honeycombing the sea-pocked bluffs. Muffled roars echoed from within the stone like a tide trapped in the earth. At dusk they found the lair. A cavern throat wide enough for 2 longships, reeking of ash and wet salt. Bones of whales and wyverns lay snapped in heaps. In the gloom, green shadows stirred. Rhaegal, wings mantled about his torso as if warding a hearth. Smoke curled from nostrils, the size of kettle drums. Around his forelegs clung iron chains half molten, trophies of some futile attempt at captivity. Arya stepped forward first. She unbuckled her cloak, letting sea wind whip braids into froth. She spoke not Valyrian, but the softer murmurs she once used to hush skittish horses in Winterfell's stables. Rhaegal's pupil tracked her, a slitted citron gate of distrust. She waited. The dragon's head lowered an inch. Jon approached next. The dragon's scales reflected torchlight in endless moss-green facets. Jon remembered flight above Winterfell on the eve of the final King's Council. Remembered lungs scoured by freezing air. Remembered the moment he knew love could ignite or consume. He whispered high Valyrian words. Daenerys had taught him beside streaming baths. Zuldrizes, Givi Issa, Nike Jelagon Kes, Sagon Kasir, Jada. Beautiful dragon, I beg here. Be here with us. Rhaegal's nostrils flared, exhaling steam that rolled across the cavern floor. The beast's luminous gaze bore into Jon's, and something flickered there. Memory, maybe. Jon unbuckled Longclaw, cast it aside. He drew off gloves, pressed palms upward. When he took one step nearer, the dragon hissed, throat sacs glowing green gold as flame kindled. Jon halted. He sensed not threat, but pain, like a splinter festered. His eyes fell on the chains. edges melded into scale. Whoever had attempted to shackle him had used dragonstone steel, and heat had fused metal to living armor. "Help me," Jon said softly to Arya. She stepped to the other side. Together they crouched, raising empty hands. Jon spoke in the common tongue, voice trembling with conviction. "We can free you. But you must trust once more." He gestured to his bare chest, to the scar where a dagger had once pierced his heart. "I know chains too." Rhaegal's rumble deepened. Then, with a wet crack, he shifted one foreleg forward, splaying claws. The chain links groaned, yet did not snap. Arya retrieved a hammer and chisel from a pack. Jon hefted a spike of dragonglass, black and strong. For hours they chipped, hammered, poured snowmelt to cool red-hot shards. Twice Rhaegal winced, steam blasting and warning. Each time Arya whispered until the dragon stilled. At last, the last link fell, clanging. Jon staggered back, arms numb. Rhaegal unfurled his wings, titanic sails brushing cave walls. He roared, a sound that shook shingle from cliff crests and drove seabirds in panicked swirls. Yet the roar carried no threat now, only liberation. Flame erupted skyward as he bounded into night, drawing a comet-green streak across stars. Jon and Arya watched breathless, faces painted jade by the light. The dragon banked, circled thrice. Then he descended, landing upon a crag above, head tilting in invitation. Arya smiled. "Your saddle, my king." Jon's stomach plunged at the memory of flight, but time was ash in his grasp. He scrambled up weather-bitten granite, swung onto Rhaegal's shoulders behind a jagged neck ridge. Arya mounted behind him, arms encircling his waist. Rhaegal's body vibrated like a storm caged in sinew. With a thrust of wings, they soared. Below, Davos and Tormund gaped amid torch-bright men as the dragon banked inland. Snow eddies rose in spirals behind them. Jon guided with subtle knee pressure, a language learned once before. Rhaegal answered, angling southeast toward the Dreadfort's distant glimmer. Wind tore tears from Jon's eyes. Arya whooped, her voice swallowed by roar. Through night, they flew, stars wheeling overhead. Dawn spilled gold as they crossed the weeping water. At noon they circled above the Dreadfort where banners of gray cloth now hung tattered, sparkling with frost. In the courtyard below, Jon spied the Faceless priests arranging men and horses in concentric wards around the central tower, perhaps expecting attack soon. Jon directed Rhaegal to light upon the bailey. Stone shattered under talons. The priest bowed as the dragon settled. Jon slid down, boots crunching. A priest hurried to him. "9 sons," she said, "and the frozen king nears." Scouts sighted him across the lonely hills, an avalanche in human shape, flanked by giants crowned in ice. "Them?" Jon nodded. "Prepare the heart." He glanced skyward. Fire arrives. While Rhaegal fed on ox carcasses hauled from cellars, Arya organized archers along ramparts, each with dragonglass broadheads. Tormund arrayed wildlings behind the first gate, axes at the ready. Davos supervised wildfire kegs rolled to murder holes above the inner yard. The Faceless men took positions inside the tower, voices murmuring hymns to their god. Jon alone descended with 2 priests to the black ice chamber. The heart still pulsed, violet flicker weaker now, as if sensing its end. Jon drew a breath, longing for Bran's counsel. But his brother remained lost to leaves and wings. He placed a gloved hand upon the ice, feeling the chill seep toward bone. "When I call," he told the priests, "clear this tower." Above, horns brayed, 3 blasts from the north. The frozen king had come before dusk. Jon clattered up steps to parapets. Across the plain, a wall of whiteness advanced, snow swirling about silhouettes of towering forms. At its core strode a figure twice the height of a man, body wrought in jagged crystalline armor fused with bone, antlers of pure ice shedding spines of hoarfrost. In his grip he bore a staff that crackled lightning between sky and earth at each step. Around him marched thousands. Whites in rotted iron, giant whites in polar bear pelts, armored walkers brandishing axes that dripped rime. Arya appeared at Jon's side, eyes bright, Looks like a proper dance. Let's lead, he said. The Frozen King halted within bowshot, raising staff. A hush fell as snowflakes suspended mid-air. Then his voice rolled across distances without wind. A chorus layered of shrieks and moans, yet intelligible in the mind. Return what was stolen. Kneel, warmbloods, and serve winter eternal. Jon lifted his chin. Winter belongs to all who endure it. You will endure no more. He raised an arm. Arrow lines thrummed. Dozens of dragonglass shafts hissed into the horde, felling wights. The Frozen King's staff swept. A wall of ice rose, shattering half the volley before they struck. The horde advanced. Within the yard, Rhaegal sensed the surge of cold. He trumpeted, fire building in throat. Jon shouted a command learned from Daenerys. Dracarys. Green gold flame jetted, arching beyond the wall to smash into the left flank of wights. Fire met frost. Steam geysers erupted, scattering bodies. Yet the Frozen King strode untouched, staff conjuring a dome of ice to deflect flame. He thrust, and spears of frozen mist lanced upward, piercing Rhaegal's wing membrane. The dragon shrieked, faltering, tearing free to clamber atop the tower. Wildlings hurled great-shot stones, smashing wights. Davos men lit wildfire casks, releasing emerald torrents that rolled like hell rivers, incinerating scores. But ice giants crashed through, bodies ablaze yet moving, clubbing stonework into dust. The courtyard shook. Jon vaulted down ladders to rally men retreating from splintered gates. He parried a white knight's frost-rimmed greatsword with long claw, Valyrian steel ringing. He riposted, cleaving the armor, shards skittering. Around him the air sang with clash and crack, arteries of flame weaving through veins of ice. Atop the tower, priests poured pitch across the ice block containing the heart, etching runes of sodium crystals that blazed white. Rhaegal crouched overhead, bleeding droplets of molten gold from wing tears. Jon scrambled up inner stairs hammered by distant concussions. He stepped onto the topmost platform as the Frozen King's shimmer rose opposite, ascending on a spiral of curling ice. Face to jagged visage, they stood. The Frozen King's eyes, twin abyssal stars, fixed upon Jon Dai. Jon felt his lungs freeze. Memory of death pierced him. Daggers in the Watch mutiny, mercy's cold creeping. Yet he moved still. The ghost who refused rest. Heart here, Jon said, voice rasping. He reached back, gripping a lever hammered into the stone. Come and claim it. The Frozen King's staff collided with the parapet, fracturing stone. Jon yanked a lever. The tower's center floor, an oaken platform built at Jon's orders, dropped away, unveiling a shaft down to the ice chamber. Rhaegal roared above, flame leaping. Priest voices chanted, pitch ignited, coating the ice block. The Frozen King sprang. Jon met him mid-leap, long claw carving a black blur. The blade bit into shoulder, shearing shards, yet the wound knit in frost. The king's antlered, head butted Jon aside, mail shattered ribs beneath. Jon slammed into battlements, vision swimming. The king descended through the shaft. Rhaegal blasted flame down the pit. Fire thundered, a column of molten emerald. The tower shook as stone cracked under heat. Jon, panting, saw the violet glow within the heart flare bright, resisting. In the inferno's depths, the Frozen King thrust staff into the fire, splitting flame like cloth. He staggered, armor running like wax. Yet he pushed. Jon forced broken ribs to bend. He seized an iron chain anchored to a siege crane and swung across the gap, dropping onto the king's back. He drove long claw point into the rent made by prior strike, twisting. The king howled, shards exploding outward. Yet still he lunged. Below, the heart cracked. Splinters of violet radiated, each pulse weaker. Fire poured, but not enough. Jon saw a vision of defeat, crown of frost rising from ashes, and acted. He wrenched Longclaw free, jammed pommel deep into the heart itself. Valyrian steel sank, bridging flame and ice. In that moment, ice screamed. A wave of blistering cold surged up the blade. Jon's hands blistered, leather freezing to hilt. The king shrieked, armored limbs fracturing. Jon roared through the pain, driving forward until steel transited heart, to stone base. A sound like glaciers calving boomed. The heart shattered, violet shards spinning into fire. Steam exploded, hurling Jon and the Frozen King apart. Jon struck the parapet rim, sliding, fingers grasping a jagged stone just in time. The Frozen King toppled, body fracturing into myriad shards. Each fragment struck by flame dissolved into mist. Steam roared up the shaft, blasting a hole through the tower roof. Rhaegal leapt clear as tower walls bowed outward. Priests fled to stairs. Arya hauled Jon upright as rubble thundered below, and the entire platform canted. Jon stumbled with her to a lateral bridge, seconds before the tower collapsed, spraying stone and ice across the courtyard. Outside, the horde convulsed. Whites halted mid-strike, then sagged. Giants froze mid-roar, shattering as they toppled. Ice Walkers shrieked once, then their forms crumpled into snowdrifts. Silence crashed down heavier than any avalanche. Men staggered from ruined gatehouses, breathing disbelief. Wildlings thrust axes skyward, roaring triumph. Atop the fractured tower stump, Rhaegal spread wounded wings, blood steaming in the cold. Jon limped forward, ribs aflame, and laid hand to the dragon's warm scales. A hush fell across the yard. Northern soldiers and faceless priests alike raised battered helms in salute. Snow drifted, peaceful at last. Arya touched Jon's elbow. Her face bore soot and blood and a grin that belonged to the little girl who once chased cats. Davos slumped against a wall, laugh leaking in rasped relief. Tormund bellowed for mead. Jon surveyed the ruin. Walls cracked, banners burnt, yet life endured. Balance, the priest had promised. This, perhaps, was its shape. Fire welded to ice, hearts tempered in shadow. Night descended, clear and starlit. Across the plain, the aurora wove ribbons of green and violet, as though echoing the clash. Jon tilted head skyward, letting cold fill lungs, ribs protesting. The wind no longer spoke of dread. It tasted of beginnings. Behind him, Rhaegal rumbled, lowering huge head, until eye leveled with Jon's. In those molten depths, Jon saw trust, sorrow, and something like fragile hope. He placed his palm against the trembling lid. "Fly with me," he whispered. "There's a world to mend." From the ramparts, horns blew a single clarion note, not of alarm but of victory. It rolled over snowfields, scattering crows, stirring fir branches into applause. Fires were lit, not as weapons now, but to warm the living. And in that dawn-bright night, the king in the north stood among ruin and rebirth alike, a blade of steel and shadow tempered by the breath of dragons, knowing that winter had not ended, but it had turned, at last, toward spring.